Hello and welcome to my glass channel. We have a mixture of demos and little tutorials here, primarily working with soft glass. So my name's Heather Barrett and I've been working with glass since 2008 and I've been teaching since 2016, so welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to work with Goldstone and how to make it into some workable encased stringer. So you can use encased stringer as a decorative element to your glass pieces. You can use it in twisties. It usually comes in kind of a brown gold tone. It also comes in a blue purple, and it's harder to find, but it also comes in a green. And of course, this wouldn't be a YouTube video if I didn't ask you to like and subscribe, but it does help me encourage me to make more of these. If you have anything particular you want to see, please let me know. It gives me some ideas for future stuff. So like, comment, subscribe. All right, let's get to the torch. So before getting to the torch, I want to talk a little bit about the Goldstone itself. What I'm using is called Goldstone Slab. It's what people use when they're making cabochons. It comes in all three colors. It does come in a pretty large piece, so you do have to break it up into more manageable pieces. This is what I've gotten from France Art Glass. You can see it's a small pebbles and of course frit. These all come in all three of the different colors. You can see how pretty and sparkly it is in the sunshine. And any large pieces I am going to put in the kiln just to make sure it's nice and warm. It's less likely to shock. Make sure you heat up your hemostat so you don't shock it. And then I'm starting by waving it around back and forth in the uppermost portion of the flame as I'm getting a glass handle ready in my other hand. So I'm still preheating. I'm being very overly cautious with this because it's no fun when it does shatter. Until finally I go ahead and attach that nice hot handle of clear glass. And again, waving it back and forth in the flame just to make sure we're good. Now we're going to start heating this up. So Goldstone, you don't want to cook it. It will lose all of its sparkle and kind of become a blah, brownish, greenish color. So you can see I'm not lingering in one spot for very long. I'm just going back and forth. Watch the corners because they'll tend to get most of the heat as you're rotating, so that's why I'm kind of picking one face, heating it up, then going to the next one, trying to avoid cooking those corners too much. This is also where you want to look out for any icky looking parts of the Goldstone, so that's any like gouges or anything that might appear not as nice in the glass. So that's what I'm doing right here. There's a little spot that's a little scummy, if I remember correctly, and I'm just heating it up. I'm going to use an extra piece of glass to gently pull that off of it. So I'm heating up the Goldstone and then kind of dragging the glass across the surface and discarding it. And I think I have a couple little meh looking spots on this Goldstone that I'm pulling off. I tend to be a little bit overly cautious. Just kind of depends on what your standards are for this. If these are well polished, you shouldn't have to worry about it as much. In this case, I think I had a little bit of a gouge in it that I was trying to gently remove without overheating it. And finally, we've removed all the blah little bits, and now it's time to encase this in some clear. So I'm making sure it's nice and warm, turning on my outer portion of the torch, cleaning up the tip of this glass rod, because I think I had a little bit of extra stuff on it. Yep, there it is. Just pulling off that excess bit of scummy Goldstone. And now on to the encasing. So just like you would encase anything, just getting the clear rod nice and hot and dragging it along the surface of the Goldstone while trying not to heat up the Goldstone too much to distort the surface or cause any scum. When I get to the end, I'm flame cutting, and from the top, another long line of clear encasement. So if you're watching this video, you probably already know how to encase, so we're going to do this in triple speed just for this encasement. However, if you would like to see a video on encasement, please let me know in the comments. Give me some ideas for the next one. But you can see this part is pretty repetitious. Just doing long, thin lines of clear glass and flame cutting at the bottom. Once you have it fully encased, you can give it a little bit of heat just to make sure there's no spots that we missed. Those will glow just a little bit brighter because they don't have that layer of clear on top of them. And because I'm being a little bit stingy with my heat, because I don't want to burn out the goldstone, I like to use my brass shaper to just kind of squish down any clear glass to help it spread to any crevices that I might have missed. So yes, you can do this with just heat, but because we're trying to be cautious on how much heat we're putting into this goldstone, that's why I like to use my brass shaper to assist me. So I'm heating up the clear glass and squishing it down just a little at a time, not overcooking the entire mass of goldstone. And you've probably noticed that this is a pretty big chunk of goldstone. This is why I like using the slab, because I can get large pieces and I can get a lot of stringer out of one little batch like this. Whereas the pieces, the small chunks that you get from Lampworking supply, each one is probably only going to be one thin stringer. So that's why I'm using what I'm using for this example. But you should use what's comfortable for you. If you only need one stringer and you want to have a smaller, more manageable project, use a smaller piece. You can even cut the slabs into smaller pieces if you want. The ones I have here are probably about 1.5 inches long, something like that. So now that I'm happy with my encasement, I'm looking around for any other spots that might need a little bit of assist. That's why I'm using my tweezers to just kind of pat down any of that clear glass. Now I'm going to start pulling this out to thin stringers. So I'm heating up the whole thing. This isn't going to be one stringer, this is going to be a couple. So heating it up and starting to pull on it with my tweezers. I'm also angling, so I'm pulling downwards so the heat can go back up into that large piece of goldstone. So I'm going to pull a couple out of here, so this one's just a little bit out of frame. Usually my first one's just a little smaller as I kind of get into the motion of it. You can see with the second stringer, this kind of has a tail a little bit because I don't want to melt that back in, because then I'll have all of that clear distorting my blob of goldstone. So I'm heating up where that tail connects with the goldstone blob. Then I'm going to pull from there. And again, I have my goldstone blob above me so the heat can rise into it. You see my pull gets slower and slower as it starts to firm up. And then I just use my tweezers to snap it. So I pulled a few more stringers without recording it, but for this last little chunk, I'm actually going to make kind of a thicker ribbon of this. I like to use these kind of flat, long pieces of goldstone for using twisties, or something that needs to cover a larger surface area of goldstone without clear interfering with all that sparkle. So I'm heating it up, same as before, being a little light on the heat. And I'm going to use some mashers to squish this down into a flatter shape. And I'm trying to keep it kind of rectangular because that's the shape I want this ribbon to be. So just a little at a time. Again, we're trying to go light on the heat. And I sped this part up a bit because, like I said, a little at a time, so it takes a little bit longer. And for this little tutorial, I tried to keep it to just stringer, but there's a lot of things that I use goldstone for. So frit, stuff like that. So if you'd like to see a tutorial, just let me know. So now that I've got this heated up, I'm attaching another handle so I can start to stretch it out into a long ribbon. So I heated both sides up and fused it together, and now I'm going to start heating up the goldstone itself. Trying to focus on one face at a time, so I'm not just rotating continuously. I'm doing one side and then the other, and then I'm coming out of the flame and just stretching it out a little at a time. Occasionally I'm tapping it against my graphite just to cool it off and help maintain that flat shape. I really find the torch top marver very useful for this, especially when your other hands are occupied using these handles. So if there's a little fat section, you can kind of heat up that and gently pull, but you don't want to make it too funky in its shape, so don't be a perfectionist. And now I'm just removing the handle, that clear, and if there's any excess I can remove that with some tweezers. Because this is a larger piece of goldstone, I would recommend putting it in the kiln when you're done so it doesn't shock. And as you can see, here is our stringer and the ribbon. I hope you guys got some value out of this video. Thanks for watching.